Yeah, ice chip, certainly a historic endeavor. And just a really quick reminder, Jake, remind everyone who may not be familiar with ice chip, which of course was last season's campaign. Just kind of talk about the goals of that, some of the takeaways before we get into what happened this year in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ian touched a little bit on the motivation of our collaboration with CMU and the other teams out on ice chip. And let me start by saying IBHS was one of the driving forces behind ice chip with our annual Hail Field campaign that started in 2012, just focusing on identifying characteristics of hailstones that need to be replicated to accurately test building materials against this hazard. And then we pushed that forward. I know Ian has often said, we started a renaissance in hail research. And the hail community is really great because we all work together to try to understand this hazard that hasn't really gotten much attention because it's not really a life safety issue. And so we had, I think it was 13 different entities from 3 or 4 different countries that came to the Great Plains to study hail. We had mobile radars to identify patterns of hail growth and radar signatures that go along with that, while the ground teams were on the ground measuring hail concentrations, hail size distributions, and how those change across the swath, impact kinetic energies, and everything that goes along with that. We even had some panels that we deployed out in these storms so that we could understand the vulnerability of different roofing materials to these hailstones. And so really the goal was to identify or sample the storm with everything we can throw at it. And really, these hailstorms have never been sampled in this capacity before. So really historic field project.
And Sabrina, you're now a PhD student. Much of your work will be centered around some of the data that was collected during ice chip. Just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we first got back from the field, and I'd taken a hand in collecting that data, so I was super excited to take a look at it, right? All these long nights, hard work, crushing, measuring hailstones. So it's like, well, let's see what this reveals. And so I kind of started out looking at some of the previous literature. What kind of assumptions were they making? Because they just didn't have the observations, right? This field campaign, there hasn't been one for 40 years. So a lot of assumptions have been made in the world of hail because you just don't have the observations. So I kind of started there, right? What kind of assumptions have we been making in the world of hail because we just don't have the observations to prove it? And so I've been looking a lot at hail size distributions and hail mass distributions.
All 3 of you were in the field once again with other CMU students that are interning with IBHS as well. And we had some new capabilities. First, I want to talk about the deployment trailers. These are super slick looking. We usually have vans, so we have this new trailer and a couple of them, I think, and we brought those in the field to help make some of these experiments possible. We have a lot of stuff to bring with this in the field to deploy in front of these storms. So, Jake, tell me about the thinking behind kind of this new setup.
The turnaround on the deployment trailers was super quick. This started back in December, I believe. We were told we have money to get these trailers, so we ordered them. They were made custom. Well, not custom, but they had to be manufactured. And they were delivered to IBHS, I believe it was in end of February, beginning of March. And huge shout out to Aaron Prabhakaran, our design engineer. He designed the entire trailer system. And Dan Wengen designed the wrap of the trailers. And like you said, they're pretty slick. And so the idea behind getting these trailers was to maximize our capacity to deploy these field panels in the field. So previously, we had the capacity to deploy 36 field panels. Well, we doubled that. We now have the capacity to deploy 72 field panels if we wanted to with these trailers. And so another thing is we don't have to rely on these racks that we would install in a transit van. We can outfit our own really sturdy panel racks that we can put in these trailers. They're installed very securely, so they're not going to be bouncing around when we go down the road. As those who have been out in the field know, we hit some pretty rough roads. And we also have capabilities in addition to field work for the Hail Field project to use these for other things that IBHS does, right? Aging farm harvests, road shows. And so these will be a huge benefit for us going forward because we can actually, we don't have to rely on other contractors or shipments to come in with aging farm panels. And we don't have to rely on shipping stuff out for a road show. We can just drive it there and back ourselves.
Yeah.
A couple other things. The desk at the front of the trailer is a huge upgrade for our workspace. Previously, when we were measuring and crushing hailstones, we had to do that in the van itself. And so you're either crouched down in the back of the van, somebody's standing outside the van with the door open, crushing and measuring, right? And now you don't have to do that. You can go in there, stand up, work on this desk. And when you have that designated space, it makes it a lot easier to do the science right. So to make sure that you're doing everything cleanly, and that makes the data clean as well. And so all these things work together to really make sure we're getting the cleanest, most quality data that we can during our field projects.